I hear the drumming. 10 dead in Colorado. Another senseless act of violence. Cries for justice go out. And yet for the family and friends of those 10, there will be no justice. They will carry the weight of their grief, the pain of their loss, the horror and terror of that day with them throughout their life until the day they die. For them, it will always be a senseless act of violence. But even more senseless has been the way we've reacted to it. How quickly we rushed in to exploit this violent act, to bolster our own positions. Cries for gun control, reactions for Second Amendment rights, and the battle continues. The violence will continue because it's not about guns. We can enact all the legislation we want, and we will not deter these senseless acts of violence. Not until we begin to address the true issue. Not until we begin to work to heal the brokenness and the divisiveness that presently exists in this country and that is growing day by day. Until we stop worrying about whether or not we bleed red or blue, or whether our card is marked Republican or Democrat or Independent, or whether we see ourselves as conservatives or liberals, progressives, whether we stop making the issues about masks or no masks, and recognize that it is an issue of freedom versus responsibility. Until we stop seeing one another as different in color, in gender, in sexual orientation, in economic standing, in religion or non-religion, in politics. Until those differences matter more than what unites us, there will continue to be senseless acts. Now, before you continue on the road you're going and pointing to all those people that have done just exactly what I've said, let me make it very clear. None of us escape. We have all, in some way, been complicit in this ever-growing divide, in the hatred, in the intolerance, in the violence. None of us escape. We're all guilty. That is the word from the cross that we will focus on this coming week in the holiest of weeks for Christians. That by the time we ring out our own personal confessions, those things that we have done and left undone that have contributed to the malaise in our society, and we stand naked at the foot of the cross and hear those words of St. Paul so clearly. Since we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, let's talk about grace. Not our grace, but God's grace. that despite ourselves, God has not given up on us. God will continue to work in, with, and through us until the reconciliation that is promised in Christ's death and resurrection is finalized. That grace screams from the cross. It marks us as guilty and lifts us up as those who have been saved. Saved for what, though? To continue the way we are? Or to see life differently? For Easter Sunday is a day of resurrection, a day of new life, a day of hope and expectation. I encourage you in those 50 days of Easter to do a little soul searching, to begin to look, to identify, and to begin to practice. One small thing, one small change that you can make in your life that will stop adding fuel to the fire, that will stop spreading the divide and begin to work for healing and unity. Until we are willing to do that, the senseless acts of violence will continue. And who knows? The next list of names may just include yours.